Hello and welcome to Upstack America's Oracle EBS Financials Functional Training. My name is Bob and I'm the lead senior consultant for Upstack America. And with me today I have Victor, who is also a senior consultant. And today we are handling lesson 5 of the fixed assets module. And Victor, please walk us through.
Thank you, Bob, for the introduction, and welcome everybody to this lesson in our Financials Functional Training series. In this FA lesson, these are the concepts that I want us to go through, and so we are going to, of course, assign an FA responsibility to our user so that we can access the FA menu options, and then we are going to look at the setup steps. We have done introduction, we have understood some concepts, definitions. We also have an understanding of some of the things that we need to do. But now we want to put it all together to see how we go about setting up a functional FA module. Okay. So just to remind ourselves, we talked about how we group assets, and we talked about these three ways, which is by asset category, by asset key, and location. You should know what each of them are. Category uses financial information. This is non-financial for asset key. And as far as asset location is concerned, it gives us the physical location of the assets. So we also talked about how we need to use the flex fields to create our structures, which we use to configure these groupings. Okay, sorry for that. My computer battery died, but let's continue. So we were talking about how we use flex fields to define these groupings, okay? And this is part of that setup, all right? So this is basically our setup plan. We need to create these key flex fields, all right? So we can have we can be able to create our asset categories, so that we can be able to create the asset key, and also so that we can be able to define the physical location of our assets. So this is the first step, and we need to do this before we can go and configure system controls. So system controls is the main setup options for FA. The same way the other modules we've dealt with have their main setup configurations, like accounting setups for GL. We have the payables options in AP, okay? And you will see that to configure system controls, you need some of the information here. You need to enter the name of the flex fields that you're going to be using. So that's why we need to create our flex fields first before going on to do the system controls. Once we configure the system controls, then we need to go and take care of book controls for our individual corporate books that we create. And this involves a lot of other things that we need to define. So we need to define these concepts that we're going to talk about: the depreciation calendar, prorate conventions, all right? So those are all part of the book controls. And then finally, we are going to create categories. Here we have created the flex fields, okay, and the structure, but here now we are going to enter the actual categories. Here is where we said we go to the categories window, and enter the valid categories is the same way that you would go to the combinations window to enter the valid combinations in the case where you didn't have dynamic insertion enabled for your chart of accounts in GL. So that is an overview of how we are going to go about configuring our FA module. Right? So the first step, of course, I said, is to have FA responsibility. So that's what we are going to do. And then now we are going to kickstart our setup plan by starting with our Flexfield. So let's go and have FA responsibility. Okay. So sorry for that. I need to go to Mozilla. Let me log out here. Okay, so let me log in as system admin. Go to security and user. If I can find it, define. So I'm not creating a new responsibility or like cloning the way we've been doing it. I'm just going to use the seeded responsibility for FA, and later if we need to create our own responsibilities, we can do that. This is the most powerful responsibility that we are assigning. It's not what in an actual implementation, not everybody would have this kind of user. A lot of the end users would have their responsibilities with menu exclusions, meaning that they can't access some setup screens and all that. Okay. So this is my user. Come down here and control down. So I'm going to type in fixed asset manager is what I want to use. And I'm going to save my work. So now I have been granted this responsibility. Let's see if it's there, right there. And those are the menu options, okay? So we have given ourselves an FA responsibility. Let's go back to our slides. So now we can start with this. So in order to create our category flex fields, these are the steps we are going to follow. It's very similar to what we did when setting up our chart of accounts in GL. We create our value sets first, empty value sets, okay? The difference here is that we are going to create two value sets, one for the major category and one for the subcategory or the minor. And the minor is going to be a dependent value set, which means depending on the value you select for the first segment, it will determine what values are available to you in the second segment for the minor value set. And we're going to see how that works. And then we are going to create the flex field structure, of course, and qualify the segments, whereby we need to qualify one segment as a major segment. And we said this is important, especially in capital budgeting. When you enter the budgets for your assets, you do that against the major category. And then we are going to add values to our value sets. Okay. All right. So that's what we need to do. And let's get right to it. we are going to use this structure with two segments, major and minor. We said this Flexfield can have a maximum of 7 segments. 7 segments is a lot, okay? So you'll find in many implementations where you're doing FA, this 2-segment structure is common, the major and the minor subdivision, okay? Remember, you also have limits to the character width. Okay, so you have combined character width of the values in these segments should not exceed 30 characters. And then there's the other thing of when you're generating reports, you might not have enough space or real estate in your reports if you qualify your segments or you have many segments in this Flexfield structure. So we are going to create something like this. I'm going to add more categories, maybe one more, so we can have many like choices in combination. I will explain also why that is or why I'm doing that. As we're going to see, when you're creating this Flexfield structure, unlike for the accounting Flexfield, you don't create your own structure, your own Flexfield structure. So you used to go and in accounting Flexfield, you go and create your own chart of accounts, right? Which will have as many segments as you want or as few segments as you want. Here you only have one structure that comes seeded. So you can only make changes to that particular structure by adding segments. Or it comes empty, so you create your own segment. So even when we are going to look at this structure in our setup or in our instance, you're going to see that it's just one structure, and it's the same for the location Flexfield and the asset key Flexfield. So it will already have maybe some values entered by other students before. And so what I'm going to do, I'm going to make some changes to it, but I'm going to ask you, the students, not to make any further changes. It's not a big deal that you need to have hands-on like experience. So I'm going to show you how to do it, but once you're doing your own setup, just try to use that Flexfield as it is to avoid making changes and causing problems for other students by changing maybe the values or the value sets attached there, okay? So let's go to Oracle so I can show you exactly what I'm saying. So the first thing we do is let's create the value set first. So we need to go to setup. Let me actually use GL responsibility. Scanning group U GL. So to go to setup, financials, flex fields, validation, then sets to create the value set, right? So I'm going to call this value set. I don't want to give it the Mascani name because I want it to be like a universal one. So I'm going to give it abstract name. I'm going to say AA, Abstract America, Major. Okay. We can give the category a description as major asset category. we are going to be entering alphabetical characters here. Okay, so we want to keep the format type as this, as character, right? We don't want numbers. And we can say we want uppercase only for this value set or not, just so that we can be sure which value set we are dealing with. Okay. Maximum size, the total is supposed to be 30 combined for the whole Flexfield. So we can give this as maybe 12, then we have 18 more characters to work with. So this is the major value set, and the validation type is going to be independent. Okay. So this is our major value set, which we are going to attach to our major segment in our category Flexfield structure. Okay. So let me save that. Then now I need to create a new value set, which is going to be for the minor. We can call it AA minor. Call it minor asset category. All right. You can have 15 characters maybe there. We only have 2 segments anyway, so you can use large amount of characters, and just as long as they don't exceed 30. Now this one is going to be a dependent value set. Okay. Once you select dependent value set, you need to select this edit information button. And what this is, it asks you first, which is the independent value set upon which this dependent value set is dependent. Sounds like a tongue twister. So this should be AA major asset category, and dependent default value. So this asks for a default value apart from the dependent values that come up when you select something in the major segment. For example, if it's computer equipment, then the subcategories will be desktop, laptop, scanner, etc. Then you can also have among those a default value, which is just default. Okay, so you need to have that, which we're going to enter here as default. And we can just say that this is default. Okay, and save our work. So we have created our value sets. We have created an independent and a dependent one. So now we need to create our structure and qualify the segments. So I'm still under the Mascani Group GL super user responsibility. I'm going to go I'm using the GL responsibility because because of the easier way to get to the navigations, but the window is the same. So here, the application we are using is fixed assets. Right? So now you can see these are the Flexfield structures available under the fixed asset application. We have the location Flexfield, which is one we are going to be dealing with. We have the asset key Flexfield, and we have the category Flexfield. Well, I can assure you that there are other students who have been using this instance, but as you can see, there are no new structures below this already existing Flexfield. You can't create, you can see even the new button here is grayed out. You can't create anything new here. So you have to work with this one that comes seeded with the system. This is a Vision installation, so that's why this one here says Vision category Flexfield. So it's the one that we are going to modify, okay? And we won't be the first ones to modify, so you're going to see that it's not empty as it would be maybe when the installation is just fresh. So if we go to segments, you will see here, this is what has been done before, okay? So we can actually go ahead and use this Flexfield structure the way it is for our setup without having to change this, but I want to change it, although it's not, Oracle says you should plan this Flexfield very carefully because changing them after you started entering data can cause some issues. But the students before have been changing. Of course, this is an instance where we do a lot of, setups and configurations for training. So what I want to do is to attach that value set there, and from when we do that, hopefully we won't need to change the value set so that we can all have uniform values to use without having to make any changes. And like I said, this is something you can know how to do by just, you don't have to like do hands-on to know how to do this. You can just look and see what's happening, right? Okay, so of course to make changes, I'll need to unfreeze this Flexfield definition and go to segments. What I want to do here is I'm going to change the window prompt to just show major and minor category. Let me change this numbering too, because sometimes it brings an issue if you don't use nice sequential, but it was 1011, so let it stay that way actually. It was 1020, sometimes it brings a problem. So I want to change this value set and attach the AA major that we have created. If I can find it, it is. And here we want to use AA minor Oh, I think I haven't saved. So let me save that and try to enter the AA minor here. So now it accepts. So that's good. Now we need to qualify this major segment, which has actually already been qualified by the previous people who did settings here. We can also qualify this as the minor, which is not mandatory. You can see whether it has been qualified. No, so we're going to leave it that way. So I think those are, we can work with this Flexfield structure the way it is right now, so we can save our work. Okay. What are some of the things we said about this Flexfield? Maximum 7 segments, maximum width 30 characters. The other thing we said is you cannot have dynamic insertion. So even if I click here, it doesn't select. Because dynamic insertion is not allowed, you have to go and enter the valid combinations in the categories window. So let me freeze. And select OK. Excuse me. So we have done number 1 and number 2. Now we need to add values to our value set. Okay. So let's go to key Flexfield values, value set. Let's start with the major one. Now we can add values here. This is what we want it to look like. Like I said, I think I'm going to add one more major category with a few more values, so we can have a decent number of combinations available. Okay. So let's go computing. Actually, I don't know whether this is longer than the 12 characters we selected. Let's see. It's longer than the maximum. Okay. Computing devices. All right. I'm going to shorten this. Devices. Wow, really? Okay. Hardware, computer, computing, hardware. Let's add a new value. What's the other thing that we had? I think we had vehicle, vehicles. I'm going to add earth mover. Although I'm not naming this Maskani, I'm still using the idea that it's Maskani. So I'm assuming Maskani is a construction or whatever company, so they'll have some earth movers. We can have furniture here, office furniture. Office furniture. So we can have those as our major categories. Then we're going to enter the minor values for these, for each of these major categories. Okay, so we can save our values here. Now let's look for our minor one. Maskani is still in my head, so minor. So as you can see, this is the dependent value set is minor. Okay, the independent value is hardware, right? Computing hardware. So when we enter values here, there are going to be subcategories under computing hardware. Then you can enter subcategories under vehicles, subcategories under earth movers, and subcategories under office furniture. So let's start with hardware. And of course, there's this default value that we entered when we were creating the value set. So computing hardware, what can we have? Desktop. This is a desktop computer. Laptop. I think in our definitions, we say to have capital letters. So it should be changing automatically. So laptop, computer. What's the other thing we can have? Printer. Printer. Printers and scanners are usually together most of the time, but just for having many values sake, let's put scanner in there too. You can put in tablet in there. Tablet device. Okay, you can save that. So those are the values available under the computing hardware. Let's go to vehicles. You can have a car here. just say car. To the type of, we can have a pickup truck. Pickup truck. Can have a lorry. Can have a van. The other kind of, maybe we can have a trailer. Okay. So that should be fine. Let's save that. Let's go to earth movers. Earth movers. Graders. Actually think we have loaders. We can have tractors. We have others called dumpers. Earth moving equipment. Let's have a final one called scrapers. We have another major category. Oh yes, office furniture. So we can have desk. We can have a table. We can have a chair. We can have a cabinet. We can have a shelf. What else do people use in the office? Desk, table, chair, cabinet, shelf. Can have a stool. So just to explain, when you're entering now your assets, the combinations are going to form one category, right? So furniture, desk is one category. Furniture, table is another category. Furniture cabinet is another category. Earth mover, dumper is one category. Earth mover tractor is another category, and so on. vehicle, trailer. Okay, so the combination is what gives you the category of your assets. So you'll have as many categories as there are possible combinations based on the values you've entered here. So we have created our asset category Flexfield. So any category, any asset category, any asset we want to enter will have to belong to any of those categories we are going to be able to create with those values that we've entered. Okay. So when we want to enter a new desktop in the system that we have purchased, we have to make sure that that category, which is going to be, hardware, then desktop, is added to, is a valid category that we've created and is also associated with our corporate book. All right. So next is going to be creating these other key flex fields. The system or the path is basically almost the same as the one for the category flex field. Okay, so that's going to be pretty fast to do, but we are well on our way on our setup. So once we finish creating our flex fields, then we can go ahead and do system controls, and we are going to continue from there in our next session. So in our next session, we're going to finish creating the flex field and head on to the other setups that we need to do. So Bob, unless you have something to add, we can end there.
Right. Thank you, Victor.
Thank you.